right? But watching the transformation of a group of guys and gals, like over a hunt's time, go from the butt sniffing phase when they all get to camp to the, like, we're all best friends cutting up, with the high fives when they harvest their first animal, which is like watching some of these guys that are like, my buddy Josh is like, I've only hunted terrorists, and he shot his first hog, and he was like, that is one of the best things I've ever done. To just see the transformation of these guys as they come in and heal, harvest, learn how to cook what they harvest, because we do a bunch of field to table stuff too. It's just super impactful for all of us in the organization, and lets us know we're doing the right thing, and it's truly an amazing thing to see.
Welcome to the Asset Mindset Podcast. Do you struggle with stress, clarity, and purpose? Well, today's special guest is going to help you with that. He's got an organization that can change people's lives. Ryan, welcome to the show.
What's up, everyone? As Daniel said, I'm Ryan Kuperus. Everyone calls me Koup, mainly because no one could pronounce my last name. So, Ryan or Koup, whatever you want to call me. I've been called a whole lot worse, obviously. I'm a retired Marine. Spent my time in the infantry and force recon communities. Still do a little contracting here and there for the military in retirement, and mostly spend my time taking veterans, first responders, and their kids hunting and fishing with the 501c3. Me and a couple buddies started, called the Reason Outdoors. So, in a nutshell, that's who I am and what I do.
So how'd you get there? What got you on that path as far as growing up and joining the military, and how'd that all happen?
Joining the military for me was I had two choices, really. One was farm. So I grew up on a dairy farm in upstate New York, which is, not the most easiest way to make a living. Or join the military. While I won't consider myself a super smart guy, I'm a Marine after all. But I was smart enough to know that if I went to college, I would just party and flunk out. So, my dad asked me if I wanted to go into business with him my junior year of high school. I told him no. And, my parents were like, what are you going to do? And I was like, probably join the military. And that's what I ended up doing. So, not that the military is any easier than farming, being a grunt and recon Marine, like, it's not necessarily the easiest way of life either, but, changed the trajectory of my life. So that's what got me in the military, and getting to where I am today. Growing up, I'm an avid hunter, outdoorsman. I'm a marginal fisherman. I'm still working on that skill. I'm a man of the land. So I just go with people who are better fishermen than me. That usually gets it done. But growing up, I didn't hunt a ton. It was more like do a deer drive after we milked cows. Not anything serious like I do now. And I broke my femur in my back in a Humvee rollover and some other things too. In 2007, and was sitting home feeling sorry for myself and eating too many pain meds and drinking too much. Decided I need to do something to get myself out of that funk. So I ordered a bow off eBay, started hobbling around the woods with a back brace and a cane, and found healing out there. I didn't shoot any deer probably for like the first 5 years that I started hunting. But I found healing in the woods. It was kind of a joke with my family, because I was like, all right, bow hunt. I'm only going to bow hunt. It's primitive. We've already hunted two-legged critters, so that's the ultimate game animal. So let's do primitive things. And I ended up buying a muzzleloader and shooting my first deer with that, and was basically like, hey, self, you like anything that flings projectiles. So quite literally, I'll hunt with anything that will take an animal down at this point. But I found healing in the woods. And that really uh, is something that I want to bring to the veteran first responder community, because it's kind of saved me from teetering on that precipice that guys find themselves on from time to time, and helping people, get out in the outdoors and find that healing that I've found, is super important to me and the other founders of the Reason Outdoors, and or just changing the trajectory of somebody's life. Maybe they don't take up hunting as a full-time hobby. Maybe they hunt with us and they learn and they become obsessed with it, or they fish with us or whatever. Maybe they weren't the guy that was gonna, pull the trigger, so to speak, tomorrow, but maybe that was going to be a down the road thing. And maybe we kind of veer that trajectory in a sense. So that's kind of why I'm super passionate about our mission, because I had personal experience there, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And speaking of personal experience, let's dive deeper into 2007 and your accident and what you were going through and the struggles so people can understand and maybe relate where they're not alone with struggles.
Yeah, sure. So I actually did my first 4 years in the Marine Corps, and then I got out. Went to college, did the reserves for a while. Huh. I actually put in an X-ray contract, which like I didn't take because they wouldn't give me a bonus because I was in this gray area, right? Like
Mhm.
prior service. Guys out the street were getting like 30 grand. Guys re-enlisting in SF were getting like 100 grand. It's like 2000, probably five time frame maybe. And they gave me all these waivers to keep my rank, but they wouldn't give me a bonus. So I was like, beat it, nerds.
Mhm.
Which in hindsight was just like, I went back in the Marine Corps with no bonus, right? It's like, why would I have not done, like, if I would have done the X-ray like program, I would have been like an E7 in like 2 years, because I was going to keep my rank, and, I was going to be a sergeant going in and all that, and just had to pass everything, obviously. But I was like, no, you don't want to give me a bonus. And, if I'm not going to get a bonus, I'll just go in the Marine Corps. But, huge mistake, by the way. Hindsight being what it is and stuff. But ever since I was a young grunt, I wanted to be a recon Marine, and force recon. And, I did the college thing, did very well, did very well in lacrosse, was a all-American, all-region player and all that. But I just felt like I had unfinished business, and, you know, I was, you know, called to serve. So went back in and, went to, the basic reconnaissance course and all that, and ended up being a team leader as soon as we got back from BRC. And my injury happened on our last training op before we were going to go back to Iraq. So I was out at 29 Palms, our last major training evolution before we were going to go back to Iraq. And then we had the Humvee rollover. And, super simple, honestly, up armored Humvee. Convoy went half right, and for some reason my driver went half left. And, Marines being, service members being the creatures we are, my driver was my slack man. He was half Pakistani, half Irish, right? So, and he's from New York City. So I'm like, look, driving's in his blood. You know what I mean? Like he's our driver. Well, driving was not in his blood, because the convoy went one way, we went the other. I told him, like, hey, turn right. And we're probably doing 25 miles an hour, and he turned the wheel, and that thing rolled over like 3 or 4 times. Ejected my whole team out of it. I had the worst of it. Trunk ripped off and landed on my leg. The door was like a foot from my head. You know, broken femur, back, fractured forehead, broke my nose in 5 spots. Teeth went through my lip. Um, and it was rough. Oddly enough, I have this tattoo on my back that says "Pain is candy." So, like, when the company came up, like our, corpsman's starting to get ready to put my leg in traction, my first sergeant walks up and he's like, "Hey, is pain candy now? Right? I'm like, no, man. No, it's not. My femur's like a quarter inch from popping on my skin, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so got
The
life flighted out.
irony.
Dude, yeah, right, exactly, right. Like it was like that ha ha, like you're like ha ha, you're in severe pain moment. Like
Hmm.
don't make me laugh anymore. But no, and pain is
Yeah.
not candy. Wrong pain, you know, wrong pain we're
Yeah.
talking about here.
Oh.
Um, so got life flight out of there, surgery. They flew me home to upstate New York, and that's where I did my recovery. Um, so the whole battalion was deployed, and the remain behind element commander was like, look, just put in for leave, convalescent leave every 30 days for the next few months, and do your rehab, get healthy-ish as you can, and then come back down to North Carolina. And sitting home there was rough, and it probably not as rough as had I been flown back to Camp Lejeune and sent to Wounded Warrior Battalion, because that was
Mm.
the other option, honestly. And having gone there later on in my career, and back then in 2007, like, Wounded Warrior Battalion was in its infancy, and that would have been a terrible place. That would have been worse for me mentally, going there. But even so, sitting home, the doctors are like, hey, look, you're not going to be a recon Marine. Like, you just broke all these things. So you can count that out. You should probably think about medical retirement, which is the worst thing you can say to guys like us, like, don't threaten me with a challenge, Um, and it, like, I was in a super dark place. All the guys I just was in RIP with and recon school and a platoon with, you know, they're all, I can't talk to any of them. So that's all my best
Hmm.
friends.
Yeah, at
They're
that point.
deployed. Back then it wasn't like you can just jump on FaceTime with dudes overseas, right? Or shoot them text messages, you know what I mean? Like, hey, you guys slay bodies yet? Like, how's it going? Um, so that, sucked, cause it was like Skype and whatever. So that was just impossible back then. So you're kind of, I was kind of alone. Um, had some friends from college around that, which was super helpful. And one of them's still one of my best friends to this day, and we still hunt together and all that. But, ordering that bow was probably the best thing I did at that time. And getting out in the woods. And I've always loved the outdoors anyway, ever since I was a kid, grew up on a farm. Just, I love being outside. So that was my healing place. And didn't, get medically retired. I actually went back down to Camp Lejeune, and the guy I was on, for some odd reason, God bless the military and their and the medical readiness system. I was on limited duty in the Navy system for like 8 years actually, and
Mm.
Marine Corps like had me as like going back to full duty, even though I had like 3 or 4 limited duty periods. I caught the guy who was my surgeon on base, orthopedic surgeon, like coming out of surgery one day, wandering around the naval hospital looking for this guy, and had him sign a paper for me to go back to full duty. And he was like, yeah, I've never even met you. Like, are you good? And I'm like, yeah. Wham, sign me back to full duty. And like, I went to Summer Mountain Leaders in Bridgeport, like 8 months after my accident, which was like a huge
Wow.
mistake. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, my body was not ready for that. But, that whole, um, situation happening to me changed everything for me, because I've not been in pain, like not been in pain since then in some form of fraction. There's a litany of other injuries that have happened because of overcompensation from,
Mm.
various things. I look like a strapping fellow, but I'm a medical nightmare. um, So, like, I used to run a 17:30 3 mile, weighing 250 pounds, and I never ran under a probably 21 minute ever again after that. And every step of it hurt to run that fast. Um, so it really changed how I had like my mindset. Um, I was probably more of your typical Marine prior to that, and work harder, not smarter, especially when it came to PT and being hard, as we do. And so I've learned I had to train smarter. Um, need to be. I learned that I wasn't bulletproof, for sure. It took me down a few pegs mentally, from that aspect, Um, and yeah, the good thing, like I said, the doctor's like, "Oh, you're never gonna be a recon Marine again." Well, I proved them wrong, and that was my number one goal, was to prove them wrong. Because I had unfinished business, so to speak.
Mhm.
I went back in the Marine Corps, right, to be a recon, force recon team leader. That was my goal. Um, Not saying I was mature or smart at that time by any means, but when you get out, do some time out, and then you come back in, you kind of have a different mindset than you did in your first 4 years,
Mhm.
where it's just a contract. Not when I went back in, I looked at it as my job and something I was going to do as a career. So have that happen to me right then, when I hadn't even accomplished my goals, was super difficult for me mentally. Um, and I set out to, prove everybody wrong, and I did. So, I mean, there was the good part of it.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
So through this mental struggle, what about being in the wilderness helped you? How was that healing?
Um, that year, you know, like I said, I've always liked the outdoors, peace, quiet, um, the ability to unplug. When you go out
Mm.
when you go out to hunt, shut your phone off. I don't always shut my phone off, especially if I've got guys hunting. Um, right, impossible task, but you shut the phone off, unplug from the world, really. If you have any of your childlike imagination left, you can sit there and imagine what the woods were like 200 years ago, when people settled it. If I was born in the late 17 or 1800s, I'd have been a mountain man and a trapper or something like that, because I love the outdoors that much, and the adventure, and exploration of it. And then another part of it, I would say, is grounding. I hunted from the ground when I first started hunting, because I couldn't physically use like a climbing
Mm.
tree stand. I couldn't get up a tree stand that year because I had a back brace on. I had a cane. Like it was hard enough to hobble around out there. So I just brought my poncho liner. Sometimes my son, he was about 5 at the time, he would come with me, and he'd just curl up next to me in my whoopee, and we would just sit under a tree and at a place I thought deer may cross, and see what comes. But that grounding, there's a factor to that, feeling the energy of the earth, um, and letting that help heal you too. So for me, it was just like peace, tranquility, and um, healing, and then excitement. Because I drew down on a couple deer that year and didn't get to send any arrows at him. One time I had a decent little buck in front of me, and my son was actually taking a nap, and he woke up. He's like, "Dad, a deer." And that thing was like gone. I was like, "Oh my gosh." It's like, come on, the one time you wake up. Um, so, and there's the excitement there. For me, like I never in combat, never shook, right? Like you get into a firefight, you just do what you're trained to do.
Mhm.
And lead men and do what warriors do. And never did I ever shake. But even now, like first deer hunt of the year, the first little fawn that comes out, my heart rate starts getting up. I get all excited. Like I used to like have to physically, it's like doing range fitness, like you got to slow your breathing, right?
Yeah.
Like concentrate, and make good shots, and that was like that for me, anytime I'd see a deer, and it's like, like I'd shoot and I might be shaking. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I think I saw it mule kick, like did I get it? It's not like that now, but I still like I see the first deer of the year and I get excited, and there's just excitement there when you get to harvest your first animal, or any animal. And now when I see guys that have never hunted before and they get their first animal or their kids get their first animal, it is just as rewarding for me as me getting one, if not more. So um, that's kind of what helped me in the outdoors.
Yeah,
Um,
that adrenaline rush is real. For
yeah,
those that haven't hunted, don't realize when you have that moment, it just like you said, you gotta think about it. You gotta breathe, calm yourself, pause. It's so funny because I got out and started hunting more. I didn't do a lot of hunting when I was young, and yeah, same deal. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, "Why do I have so much adrenaline? Like, this is like a stress test."
yeah, yeah,
You know?
exactly. You're like, I didn't know this was going to happen to me. Wow.
Yeah, so that's, exciting and fun. So this is a lot of what I'm seeing from you is like ecotherapy. Can you dive into the whole concept of ecotherapy?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you our the funny version here first, right? I mean, because we were thinking, we're like, all right, we need some catchy slogan, right? Something that is different than what other organizations use. Um, and we're like, and we need something to get more liberal-minded companies to donate to us, or
Mm.
the people who are like, oh, veterans and first responders, like, oh, and hunting and guns, and maybe they have a beer or two, right? Like, I don't know about this, like, how's that, and like, there's people who think that, especially if they're not hunters, so like, what catchy slogan kind of encapsulates everything? And me and our media guy James were talking one day, and he's like, what about, and he's like doing AI stuff, and like we're just we're just chucking spitballs at the wall. And he's like, what about ecotherapy? And I was like, ooh, that's that could do it, right? Because mental health, and looking at grants and all that'll help as well. And I was like, all right, let's test this. If we can get, because we're getting ready to do our first hunt. And I was like, if we can get REI, because one of our advisory board guys was like, hey, like, I got a contact at REI, right? They do these grants, whatever. I'm like, all right, if we can get REI, which is very, kind of more liberal company, right? If we can get them to donate anything to us, it's going to stick. And we got them to donate 2 cots. They're super nice cots too, by the way. So, that sent ecotherapy on its way. We did a couple collaborations with Nine Line Apparel, and the marketing team there was like, "That's a fantastic thing." Um, so that's how it stuck. But we've really like, I mean, we embraced the phrase and the meaning behind it right away, because it's it's what we do. And ecotherapy, and we do hunting and fishing, but outdoor adventures. We've got folks that want us to bring a couple guys to come catfish on the new Neuse River and camp for a night. Kayaking. So not everybody wants to hunt and everybody wants to fish. I don't know why, right? But but for folks that want to kayak, our director of maritime operations, my buddy Sean, I had to give him an awesome title. Because he's like, dude, the director of like fishing. He's like, I want something that, everything. I'm like, all right, director of maritime operations. It sounds real agency like.
Nice.
But he's like, all right, look, I got a buddy with kayaks. So I'll take some guys kayaking. You know, ecotherapy means that anything that is outdoor related will do. Um, and some of our team leads have different passions. Uh, my buddy JD has a sailboat that he's gonna take people out on like evening cruises on. He's like, I'll bring some guys that
Mm.
want to do that, or another friend of mine does excursions here on the barrier islands, right off the coast, and he takes some of our folks out every once or twice a year. And so a family going out on a sunset cruise, that is great bonding time for the family. And, ecotherapy has to do with the outdoors, has to do with guys' mental health, um, and doesn't without cramming it down their throat, I guess.
Mm.
Kind of, if that makes sense. Sometimes guys go and do events with organizations and get paraded around a little bit. Um, I've been on some amazing hunts and kind of got a little bit of the parading around thing, which is fine. It didn't bother me at all, but some guys it does. And so we have some hunts or fishing trips are super, like, personal and
Mm.
private. One or two guys, maybe some friends that haven't seen each other in 10 years, and they go fish for a day, and then we have some bigger events. There's really no parading around by any means, but we have small events, big events. Our budget, we ball on a budget. So, you know, like, depending on what we have in the coffers, depends on what we do, but we, we do all kinds of stuff. So ecotherapy kind of just encapsulates everything having to do with the outdoors and healing, the heroes of our country.
I love it. Now, are
Yeah.
you primarily East Coast, or do you do the whole country, or where do you? What's your AO, area of operations?
Um, you know how I can tell that, so, that we're both military guys. Obviously, I know what AO is, but for the listeners, like, you got to say acronyms. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So when we start, that's how I know that, like, you've been at this for a bit too, right? Because, like, sometimes people, like, I had no idea what you guys just said in the last 5 minutes,
Yeah.
because you use so many acronyms. But so we're a have guns will travel kind of
Okay.
outfit. So last year we hunted and fished probably 15 states. Um, Took well over 150 people last year hunting and fishing. Our biggest event, we had a dove hunt where we had 35 guys attend that. And then, yeah, I mean, we've done anything from predator hunting and predator competitions to elk hunting, iguana hunting with air rifles in Florida, which,
Wow.
if you've never done that, it's about the most fun you can have with pants on. Duck hunting, pheasant hunting. If, it flies, walks, crawls, swims, it dies. And we also took the first all veteran team, the Rocky Mountain Air Gun Challenge. So that was super cool too. A different avenue for, guys from our cut of cloth to put lead in the air and get some good training. And if you win PRS at RMAC, it's $25,000. So for all the guys listening, they're like, yeah, right, I'll go shoot air guns, yeah, whatever. Right? If you win bench rest, 25 grand. You win PRS, 25 grand. Big bore is like 12 grand. Speed's like 13 grand or something. There's a lot of money in air guns, and they will humble you quick.
Mm.
So I brought some really good shooters, and I'm no slouch either, and we didn't do very great. So, but
So, what's the big
yes,
difference with the air gun?
um, so the 300 yards with a 308 would be like the equivalent of 100 yards with an air gun.
Mm.
And instead, we're shooting a 34 grain slug at 1,000 feet per second at quarter-inch pieces of steel at 50 yards in high desert crosswind. Um, it's a completely, I mean, all your fundamentals of marksmanship apply. For all the PRS guys or NRL hunter guys, all the same skills apply there. Now you're just using your ballistic computer inside of 200 yards and hitting
Mm.
little tiny pieces of steel. And it is stinking a bit harder than I thought it was going to be. I mean, it truly, like, it humbled me. as much as it calls me to say that.
Yeah.
Super humbling. Um, and they're quiet. Um, you don't have to have any paperwork to buy them. You can order the gun, the moderator, which is what they call the suppressor, online, have it sent right to your house. Like, I live in the burbs of Wilmington, North Carolina, and I have an air gun range set up behind my fence at my house, and I can go back there and practice whenever I want. And they are devastating to hunt with. Um, Used the 22s on iguanas. We actually shot some hogs with them. Um, Squirrels,
Hmm.
raccoons. I shot a 9-foot gator with an air rifle. I've shot deer and hogs with big bore air rifles. Like, I have a 457, a 51 caliber that has over 1,000 foot-pounds of energy. So it's a one
That's a
for
thump.
oh, it literally, like, first time I shot the 51 caliber, it's called the Tex Rex. First time I shot it, I was like, wow. There's recoil to this thing.
Hmm.
Um, and for guys like us, you have to make believers out of our communities, especially out of the veteran community, because we're like, an air rifle, what? Like, if you told me 10 years ago I'd shoot air rifles, I'd tell you to kick me right in the where. But here I am, a huge advocate of them. I use them for urban predator eradication. We had a guy on our last hog hunt we did, shot a 230-pound trophy monster boar with a 457 air rifle. So, um, something new for guys. And, like I said, all your training comes into play. So if you're a PRS shooter and all you can get is 200 yards, you can take an air gun out there and set up a course of fire and with little teeny tiny targets and get some good training too. So
No, I
different,
love it.
yeah, different options, and for some guys that don't want to hunt or fish, they like to compete and shoot, and this is a different avenue for them. And I had originally thought air gunners would be kind of basement dwelling nerds, but it is it's a great community, and there's some super great people, amazing people I've met through that. So,
No,
but
fantastic. Yeah, that's something I haven't even had that really hit my radar at all, the
right,
air rifles and air rifle competition. But I can see where the margin of error is just so small and so tiny, with those targets. Like, you
yeah,
can't be off much. The
no,
ballistics and everything is very
yeah,
challenging. And guys like us, we like challenges.
yep,
So
yep, exactly,
I I do want to let you know, though, if you ever want to go do anything in the New Hampshire, New England region, let me know. There's a Camp Resilience that I used to be on the board of before I moved to Nashville. And they go out on the lakes. They do, mountain climbing. They got a yacht club. They take people out on the water. It's not directly all hunted related, but when you were talking ecotherapy, it kind of triggered my mind like, yeah, they do a lot of that because they also believe, and I've seen it firsthand when I've been part of their events, is getting outside, walking, moving, being in nature. You're not overstimulated. You can calm yourself. You're with other people that have similar backgrounds, the bonding and the healing that would take place, just people walking on a trail. It's incredible.
right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely will take you up on that because we do a lot with other organizations. We're in our third year of operation, and I was joking saying that we ball on a budget, but we do. So we have had other organizations sponsor hunts with us. I actually just talked to Special Forces Foundation the other day about sponsoring some hunts. So we do a lot of collaborations with other organizations that don't necessarily do what we do. So I'm all for it, and it's for the greater good. Um, we had this discussion when we first started, like, hey, who are we going to take on our adventures?
Mm.
Are we going to only do combat guys, combat wounded guys? We're only going to do, soft recon, whatever. And you know, we decided, like, hey, if you sign that blank check, that could have been cashed in at any time. So we take anybody from any job specialty, whether you went to combat or not. And typically when I have, a couple say, you know, pogues, but support guys, right? Enablers. We'll go with that, right? Way more professional, right? Because it doesn't, that stuff doesn't matter anymore. But
Hmm.
if I take a couple support folks, I'll mix them in with some combat guys. Or if I have a bunch of young guys who've not been to combat, I'll mix in some of the guys who have been there and done that. And if I can get that healthy mix, um, support folks, combat, non-combat, everybody becomes friends, right? They've expanded their networks. Some of these guys have been retired or out for a while, right? Are super still love to hear what the guys are doing now, right? Make sure the standards being upheld and, all that. And the young guys want to talk to the old guys about slaying bodies, back in the day and, all this stuff. But, it takes very short amount of time for everyone to be joking and hemming and hawing or breaking balls. And as we do,
Oh yeah.
uh, yeah, I mean, it's a thing that has to happen. But And I mean, for some of them younger guys, like it's a great recruiting tool for some of our communities because they're like, you know what, like, I didn't consider this. Maybe I should go take a selection. But everyone at the end of a weekend is best friends, and I've got like for every hunt we do, I start a thread on Signal, and like I've got threads from like 2 years ago that are still regularly, popping off about stuff, which is just fantastic because a lot of people get out of the military, maybe only do 4 years. And I mean, we all know the type. The guys are like, I hate this. This sucks. Like they started counting down their contract, like on like year two, counting down the days, minutes, hours, seconds, right? Not the best way to do it, but, and they got out and at some point realized that that network they had was that was their family, the people that they sweat with, bled with, and some of them have too much pride to say, yeah, I'm struggling right now and get help, call their brothers or sisters, right? And when we bring some of these guys in, and especially like I've had folks contact me like, hey, so and so is struggling. Do you got something for them? And I'm like, yeah, let me get you on a next hunt we have, or let me go take you on a predator hunt or something. So I can just do those pretty, like really easily. 'Cause I do that a lot anyways, but, that expanding that network and a combination of the outdoors, thrill of the hunt or fishing, right? The camaraderie, right? Like helps these guys realize that this network and family that they lost is still here and all around them. I mean, we've got 25 years, of veterans, combat veterans, and, you know, folks that were in during the GWAT, um, and whatever we're calling the current conflict too, right? But we've got a lot in our community, and the veteran community is notoriously terrible to one another, and I mean, some guys deserve it, obviously, but, you know, but like the veteran community is terrible to one another. And it's like, hey, doesn't matter where you've gone back to post military service, there's somebody in your area, right? Maybe you didn't serve directly with them, but there's someone there who's been through the same things that you have that you can bond with and, you know, spend time with or talk about whatever. Um, so just getting people to establish a new network, maybe re, just kind of reinvigorate them, and some of their spirit. We've had 5 guys, at least that have told one of, founders or team leaders that, if it wasn't for our hunt, that they would have put a pistol in their mouth and pulled the trigger. And, I'm sure there's more guys that have, or gals that have felt that way. But that, to me shows that what we're doing is the right thing. So,
No, that's incredible to have stories like that with you. And I think you touched on something that's very important is people and their pride. Sometimes you got to let go. You have too much pride, it can lead to isolation and feeling alone. And what advice would you give somebody maybe that's listening to the show as a veteran or first responder and they're afraid because of pride to open up?
Um, find find the person that you can open up to. Um, the sometimes we talk and everyone's like, "Hey, just, call a brother," or, pick up the phone and call someone. And I've got a couple guys that will randomly call me on Facebook Messenger, like FaceTime me on Facebook Messenger, like once or twice a year. That I like, and it like almost clockwork at this point. Like, hey, just want to call and see how you're doing. And I'm like, well, how are you doing? And sometimes you can tell if they're struggling, but like find the person that you can connect with. That's probably my biggest advice, because to say, just call a brother, right? Call someone that you served with, um, is something that I mean, there's guys I talk to now that I would never talk to on active duty, for various reasons. Whether I didn't think they lived up to the standard, my standard, which was very high, right? Maybe I didn't like what they did, as a fellow team leader, and I thought they, you know, might get guys killed in combat, and I'd only surround myself with a very small circle of people I consider to be at my standard or above, and like surround yourself with greatness type thing. But when I retired, I had the epiphany, not epiphany, just maybe maturity, but like, hey, these guys, some of these guys, right, that I didn't talk to on active duty, um, they met the standard and they were above the standard, right? And that standard is top, 1% of the entire, DOD or DOW, right? And they deserve my respect. And now nobody's lives are on the line, right? So they deserve to have my respect, right? And friendship. Some of the guys I'm very good friends with now that I really didn't talk to on active duty, but there's somebody out there for everybody to talk to, right? Just because you're a SEAL, right, doesn't mean that the guy that you connect with is going to be a SEAL. Could be a box kicker from Supply in the Army, but there's someone there that's going to like connect with you, and it doesn't, we all get, especially in our communities, we get very fixated on like, all right, I have to, sometimes surround myself with soft guys, recon Marines, or this or that. But that's not necessarily the case, right? There's somebody that for everybody to connect with, and the person might be, they're probably right next to you and you don't know it, you know? So find the person you connect with. I think that's my best advice.
No, that is great advice, and I think it gives hope to people, and I like how you broadened reaching out to people. Like, the target market isn't just, oh, your fellow SEALs or Green Berets or fellow Marines. You never know who that person that you're gonna bond with. It could be, somebody down the street, a whole 'nother generation of soldier, Marine, could be somebody from the Coast Guard, who knows, that just has been through some stuff or dealing with things in life. And I think finding someone that's going to help you is so important in life, which is why I help coach people and teach people how to create a more positive mindset. That's what we're trying to do here with the asset mindset. And I love doing that with people. And I love that you are sharing this information with others and helping teach them so they can heal and get out there. And please, everybody, do something positive for us. Give us a like, follow, and share this with someone you think needs to hear it, because we're giving back and that's what we're all about. You're hearing the stories. This is truth. This is no made up stuff that we're just trying to, oh, look at us. We are really trying to help make the world a better place. And if you're watching this, I know you want to make the world a better place too. So get out there, get involved in your community, get involved with The Reason Outdoors. All the information's in the description. You can find information there and hook up with Ryan, or Koup, as he says. So, but please do get involved and give yourself some grace. Can we talk about grace a little bit? Because I think people, yeah, we talked about pride, but I think people also harden themselves. How can giving grace help?
Oh, I mean, to give grace, sometimes you got to forgive yourself, you know? Um, and sometimes you have to have some hard talks with yourself. If you can't give yourself some grace, it's super hard to give other people some grace. And, you know, to do that, right? A lot of guys and gals in our community are harbor a lot of anger, you know, and resentment. And you gotta forgive yourself, figure out what you're upset and angry about, right? And sometimes to do that, you have to give yourself some forgiveness, which helps you, uh, become a little more grateful. Uh, and when you give yourself some grace, you can give other people grace too. Everybody's experiences are different. Um, you know, every every man, every service member, has a breaking point. In my opinion, because there's some guys, they're like, oh well, he's got PTSD, right? Like, yeah, he only did one deployment, right? Well, look, if he was a box kicker in supply, was in a complex ambush on a resupply convoy, saw his friends die, right? Like, that guy's level of training isn't what ours is, right? Isn't what an infantryman's is. Isn't what a recon marine or a soft guy and a tier 1 guy's training is. That could have broken him or her mentally, right? Like, we all have a breaking point depending on your level of training, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, that trifecta there. That level of training that you have in the military kind of like like is like the level of where that breaking point may be. And some people have stronger mindsets than others. And, a super smart therapist I talked to one time said that, like, hey, your brain's like a filing cabinet. And if you take the files, you flick them up, you can't close the drawer, and you might not ever be able to close the drawer smoothly again, but if you can shake those files down good enough, right, you might have a couple hiccups, right, to open and close that drawer, you can live a fruitful and productive life, and the stuff that comes with that is giving yourself grace, right? It's like what they tell you at SEER school, like, you know, when you accidentally give information you're not supposed to, you know what I mean? Like, you just gotta freaking, you know, drive on, right? Like, just get back up from it, dust yourself off, right? But, like, give yourself some grace, you know. We hold ourselves to super high, sometimes unrealistically high standards, and that doesn't ever leave you. And there's some guys that can't attain the standard they want in life for various reasons, whether it's injuries, whatever it is, and they start to let that crush them, and not understanding that, hey, look, give yourself some grace, right? Society's measure of success isn't doesn't have to be your measures of success, right? You did your time, whether it was 4 years, whether it was you only made it 2 years, whether you did 30 years, right? You still did something that less than 5%, 10% of the population does by signing the dotted line to start off with, right? And now, wherever you were at, whether that was 2 years, 30 years, whatever in between, whether you've been, whether you consider it a successful career or not a successful career, right? Like, forgiving yourself, giving yourself some grace helps you be more grateful, right? Helps you um, change your mindset and attitude, you know? I was fortunate enough to go down and do ibogaine down in Mexico with vets, which was a completely awesome experience for me, and helped me realize, PTSD for me wasn't anything combat related, but it was an inability to connect with my children. Right. So it improved my relationship with my family greatly. And for everybody that's struggling out there, there's somebody for you that can connect with you, but it's not always going to be your job. Okay. That might not be that you might be the SF guy whose best friend was a engineer in the engine room in the Navy, you know, but, or, or, you talk to some Desert Storm veteran, and you guys hit it off, right? There's somebody out there for everybody. Um, but you gotta, that whole giving yourself grace and learning to do that helps you give it to other people. That's my thought, long story long.
No, that's great. And there's a lot of good input in there. And I really, really like that you hit on, yeah, it's kind of cliche, hey, you wrote it or you signed a check that could be cash at the cost of your life. And I think that's something that all of us need to remember.
Yeah.
We all signed on the line because you're absolutely right. You could have been some truck driver and you just trained on how to drive a vehicle and you think, oh, I'm just going to be dropping off stuff to different bases or driving around delivery, like I'm a FedEx driver. And then they get caught in an ambush, like you said, man, that's, a whirlwind for them. They're not, we went out, we were expecting ambushes. We're, looking for them. We've been trained on them. But absolutely. If you signed on the line, man, you deserve a lot of respect because, like you said, it's such a small percentage of people who did that. So, before we wrap up, I would like you to give the audience your last little bits of success with what you're doing, what you've seen work, and then how people can get a hold of you. Give your plugs.
Oh, success. Man, I'll tell you, the very first hunt we did was in Idaho, Unit 39, backcountry hunt. When we started this organization, we almost started in 2017. We shelved it. Actually, that was probably for the better because I was like too much like force recon, like gunny, like back then, still like plugged into I need the guide a few thousand civilian clients first, so I can like not that I'm polished by any means, but like work on my hustling skills and that and learn how to talk to people a lot nicer. But when we decided we wanted to take some guys to the back country and just mentor them. And then my buddy Tony was like, "Hey, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger on this." I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So for some reason, the IRS moved quick, and here we were. Bam, Unit 39, second, probably, like 5% success rate there. Uh, you know, backcountry, do it yourself, public land, elk hunting's like the second hardest thing you can do in the lower 48, behind sheep hunting. And there we are, like just calling everybody we know for like sponsorship money. Not, I mean, an ish of a clue of how to budget for this hunt, but we probably hiked like 150 miles in the back country. And out of 6 guys, we got 2 elk, 2 mule deer, which was a fantastic success. Um, you know, our, we, one of the things I consider a huge success is keeping guys active in the program. Sometimes you get organizations that are like, "Hey, great hunt, great to meet you, high five," and sometimes you hear from them again, sometimes you don't, which is fine if that's how they do it. But we try to keep guys in the program. So our predator hunting, which we do a lot of in the wintertime, because that's just maximum camaraderie. Minimum stress, right? We go to a field, we set up the call, we call in a coyote, we do a countdown, right? Guys shoot. Somebody probably misses, he gets his balls broke, obviously. But if nothing comes in, we go to the next field and we call. Then we go to the next field. And this year in the Onslow Predator Challenge, which is the biggest and best one in Eastern North Carolina here, we put in 4 teams this year. And our first team that we put in 3 years ago has the same guys coming back. So like Tyler Vargas, he got his first coyote with us, which he's just loves it. And the other 2 teams, so each year I have added a team. So this year we had 4 teams in that event. And next year I'll hopefully have 5, hopefully. Um, and so we keep guys involved there. Guys who hunt, Colorado or Montana or some of our Western hunts, if they want to learn how to guide, our head of Western hunting, Nick, will teach them how to guide, right, and how to do things in the backcountry. So we're trying to, work on expanding that. Guys who did our very first hunt with us, they come out and help with hunts now. Some guys have become team leaders that want to be more involved in the program. So when you do stuff with us, it's not a fire and forget, right? Like, thanks for joining our ecotherapy program. We want you to come back in some capacity again, and mentor some other guys, potentially, or like, hey, look, I'm in a bad way. I need to hunt. Come on. So I think that one of our greatest successes is keeping guys involved in the program. Um, the amount of support we've had from the veteran community and the civilian companies and communities been fantastic. The hunting and shooting industry is inundated with people asking for free stuff, and we've had some great sponsors in the hunting and shooting community, like Rapid Airworks and Air Force Air Guns. They've donated probably $25,000 of air rifles to us in the last couple years. Yeah. Um, Salty Britches, which is an anti-chafe cream. Amy Tucker, she's helped us out a lot too. But, the companies like that believe in our cause, um, has been fantastic. All our, friends and family, and then random folks that, like we just had a charity hockey game up in Raleigh last weekend, and our media guy James randomly met a guy from Raleigh Fire Department at the range in Brunswick County. They started talking, and he's like, "Hey, I gave this guy John your number. He calls me. He's a captain with Raleigh Fire Department. He's like, I would really love what you guys are doing. Would you guys be interested in, going halvesies on the donations from this charity hockey game between Raleigh Fire Department and Raleigh PD?" And I was like, "Yeah, please, absolutely, absolutely."
Yeah.
So we went up to Raleigh and got to watch the game. Raised about $8,000 for us, another $8,000 for the Carolina Hurricane Sled Hockey nonprofit, and had a great time. So just people like listen to what we're doing right now that hit me up and give us opportunities for hunting, donations, whatever it is. Like, that support has been outstanding, and we can't do anything we do without them. So, in a nutshell, that'd be all the successes, as well as obviously like watching the transformation of uh our heroes. As I say, guys are like, "Yeah, I'm not a hero, I'm just a guy," but I'm like, "Yeah, you are." Right, but watching the transformation of a group of guys and gals, like, over a hunt's time, go from the butt sniffing phase when they all get to camp to the, like, we're all best friends cutting up, and the high fives when they harvest their first animal, which is like watching some of these guys that are like, my buddy Josh is like, "I've only hunted terrorists," and he shot his first hog, and he was like, "That is one of the best things I've ever done." To just see the transformation of these guys as they come in and heal, harvest, learn how to cook what they harvest. So we do a bunch of field to table stuff too. It's just super impactful for all of us in the organization, and lets us know we're doing the right thing. And it's truly a amazing thing to see. So, folks can find us at thereasonoutdoors.org. They can find us on Instagram at the_reason_outdoors_. Facebook, The Reason Outdoors. YouTube, The Reason Outdoors. You can send smoke signals, carrier pigeons, Morse code, however you want to contact us. um, We'd love to have y'all, hunt with us, fish with us, um, or support us in any way.
Wow, that's fantastic. Wonderful having you here. I'm proud of you and all the work you're doing, helping out other people. You're a prime example of the asset mindset. And what I try and coach and teach people on is to get out there and surround yourself with good people, be an asset to others, and your life will change and become more positive. Because always remember, you need to own your power. Own it. Take control of your life. And God bless.